First job is to thank David Hamilton. David, put your hand up, whose place we're on. So it's his good nature that we can have these sort of days, and their farmers group that are doing a great job with the alternative fertilisers, which we'll have a look at after lunch. First thing I need to do is today we're doing a bit of filming, and there'll be a few photos taken. If people don't want their photos or that taken, just have a look at the camera and either mention it to me, and we'll do our very best not to do that. This is for a online and some video footage, which we'll be using this down in the soil pits for other people to look at. Bit of housekeeping. There is a toilet down the hill there for people to use. We'll be up here for approximately half an hour going through some landscape and vegetation issues. Then we have two soil pits, one down to my right and one down to the left. We'll be breaking into two groups, two totally different soil profiles, where we'll have some soil scientists and people talking you through what that means and how you might look at those things for management on your properties. Now, we realise people are from outside the Strathbogie area here. Some of the things apply, some of them don't. We will be running these days at different venues as well, rather than on top of the Strathbogies. I'll introduce you to Mark Cotter, who's from the CMA, who's got some resources for people to hand out, and then David Rees, who's from the Department of Primary Industries, to take you through the landscape and where we're situated in the landscape and why we're here.
Yeah, I'm just going to hand out some notes for today, which will basically give the information that you're going to be looking at. If you can hand them around, Brett. It will give you a quick rundown on the information that you'll be hearing today from David and Kath and Peter Rockenden and Brad Costin. I won't go through the notes in any detail, but what I will point you to when you get to the back of them in the back of them there's a bit of a worksheet for people to look at. It's not to do today. This is just the sort of thing that if you're interested after today and you want to know a little bit more about your profile on your property or different paddocks, and you want to reinforce some of the things you learned today about texturing, structure, colour, the sorts of things that you'll hear a lot about today, and they're pretty important for understanding the profile, understanding why pastures grow better in different areas, why sometimes liming works better at times than others. A lot of it will come down to what you understand about the soil, particularly down the soil profile. We're very used to looking at the top 10 centimetres, the top 4 inches, because that's where we put most of our attention, but we can't forget the rest of it, which is the roots used to a metre, metre and a half, or deeper at times. So this is just a sheet for you to look at, keep in mind, and when you go back to your farms, have a bit of a play with it. Because that's the purpose of today. It'll be an interesting thing to look at soil profile on David Hamilton's farm. That's great. But what will be more important if you can go back and actually use this stuff. That's all I want to say. And I'll pass over to David Rees, who's going to entertain us, no doubt.
Right, thanks Mark. You've got handouts. Now, I've just been asked to say a little bit on sort of landscape issues and a few things, and I just want to try and break things up a bit. I'd like people to come in a bit closer and we'll have a look at the pit, but before I do, because I've only got some A4 and A3 handouts and I need you to have a look, because it's not much point in you standing back there. But we're going to have lunch later on. What I'd like to do though is, I've got some crisps here and I want you to work out what a packet of crisps and this landscape have in common. So, but I need you to read the back left hand side of each of these packet of crisps, and I don't want anyone shouting if you think you know the answer, but you talk amongst yourselves. I've only got 4 packets, so if someone can be in the front, you could be an official crisp holder, and you've got 2 minutes. I'm going to keep talking, but if you can all have a look at the packet of crisps and try and work out why a packet of crisps is has got something in common? Why has this packet of crisps got something in common with this landscape? So have a quick read. Pass the crisps, the packets on. I've only got 4. I was going to let you open them, but I don't think you've earned it yet. So you've got to wait till lunchtime. So pass it. Everyone needs to read read them. Pass them on. Crowd in, and pass them round. So one of the things, it's we're in the Strathbogies, which everyone sort of realises. In the handout, we have something which unfortunately isn't in colour, which is that map there. And that sort of shows what we call the geomorphology, or basically the physiography of parts of Victoria. And basically the Strathbogies make up an uplifted area that has a number of plateaus, which are marked, the plateaus are marked in red there. And then you have these sort of slopes going off. So at a broad view, you know. So if you were talking to someone away from here, how would you describe where you live? So if you had to describe the Strathbogies to someone, say, from Western Victoria or from South Australia or somewhere, how would you describe it? So can someone give me an idea, if they wanted to describe where they live, how would they describe the Strathbogies or this area? Any suggestions? Yeah. We've got on top of a hill, plateau, seems to be fairly common. Yeah, we've got high rainfall, we've got granitic, and actually you've hit an interesting word. How are we going? We passed all the crisps around. Has everyone read the back of the packet? You've got to read the back of the packet, the left hand side. So, has anybody, for those that have read the packet of crisps, well, there's rolling landscape. Has anybody got any idea what might be common wording that might relate on the back of the packet of crisps? It's in bold. Well, all natural. Well, I like your thinking. All natural ingredients. All natural. The lady in the front here sort of mentioned the word granitic, and one of the things I want to bring out, if you read, can you see the words? 2 words: slow cooked. So these particular crisps are slow cooked. This is a granite landscape, which is a slow cooked landscape. So okay, so granite has formed under the earth and has taken a long time to form. And most of the granite in Victoria is the Devonian of age, around about the 420 odd million years ago. So it's been around a little longer than some of us, and it's had time to sort of develop. But then erosion has worn down, and then it's exposed it. And so granite has been pushed up slowly, so it means that it perhaps got little bumps and things because it's gone up all the fissures and things in the landscape, and then it's been eroded, so you're left with this undulating sort of landscape, but also you get slightly different variants. So it's been slow cooked over a long period of time, like the crisps, and that's the excuse for you getting crisps at lunchtime. And another consequence of that, of the slow cooking, is that you get large crystals, if you like, forming. So whereas granite has these larger minerals formed, whereas something like basalt, which comes out of the ground really quickly, has finer crystals formed. And then, of course, there's the question about how much acidity. One of the things that happens with granite, because it forms, is that it forms in patterns. So there's often lineaments, lines, and you can probably follow lines, you know, at a broader scale, you can follow lines of development or weakness. And that's often comes out in the fact that you often have springs in granite. Someone was talking to me earlier about the amount of springs that you might have, because granite can be very hard, but where it wears down, water will follow those lines and be channeled along there, and it's very sort of channeled. Now, granite is made up of basically a lot of quartz and other minerals, mainly feldspars, which break down into clays, and including biotites. But quartz is made up of silica and is very inert, so it that's why it's often residual, because it doesn't break down. So that's why you see, and in this case you see a lot of quartz is the dominant mineral, whereas the feldspars break down and they move away and form clays, and we'll see later on the dominance of clays in lower landscapes. So even on sort of slight slopes like this, there's a lot of movement of clays away, because quartz doesn't tend to sort of break down, holds on. And we'll do one little demo. Can I have, hopefully people don't mind a little bit of, it's not quite a rugby field, but we're going to have a bit of contact sport happening here. So can I have a volunteer, yes, can I have a volunteer who probably doesn't mind volunteering, Brad? Well, it's good to have Brad volunteer, but I would also like some non-departmental volunteers to help. As well. Brad, can you put that over? Can you help Brad and put this? We're not going to suffocate him, because hopefully there's. Yeah, sorry, Judy. So if you can just put that over here and inside.
Oh dear, I don't want to do that to him.
No, it's all right. Your head comes out there.
It does.
Yeah, and if you can keep your arms in, if you can.
Going a bit pink there.
You see, Greg would be fitting with that. I'm warm already.
Okay, so we've got Greg. So
Do that to me.
no. Now, Judy, if you don't mind, Judy's going to hang on to Brad. So if you can just grab hold of him.
Like this.
Yeah.
Do I hug him?
Well, you can, yeah. we've got plastic between you, So we need someone now. So we need someone to come and try, and Judy's trying to hang on to Brad as much as she can, but then we want someone to come along and see if they can pull Judy away from Brad. Okay. So. Yeah, so Judy's hanging on to Brad. Can we have someone? Yeah, there. There. Yeah. Well, that's right. Now, Judy, I want you to hang on to Brad as hard as you can.
Right.
Without clasping your hands. Without clasping your hands. And then, so what was your name? Yvonne. Yvonne's going to try and pull Judy away from Brad. And Judy's hanging up, but Judy's going to let go a little bit, and so she can come off like that. Whereas if we just sort of move that, if Brad's hands are just available, and Judy'd like to hang on to Brad now, yeah, hold it, and Yvonne, can you see if you can pull Judy off now? No, yeah, that's right. People going in the pit. Okay. Yeah. No. You try as hard as you can, and you can see that Judy's hanging on a lot tighter there. Okay. So thank you very much. So if you just think that Brad was the bit of quartz, this is white, not black. So black's the new white, and Brad was sort of quartz which hasn't got any hooks on him, if you like. It's inert material. There's no chemical bonding. So that's why quartz stands out by itself. So anything that tries to hang on to quartz doesn't hold on really, really strongly, which is why you have erosional problems with a lot of quartz coming out, because other materials won't hang on to it. So Judy was sort of like a silt or clay particle, was sort of clinging there, but didn't have the real grip. Whereas when Brad had his hands available, he was sort of like a clay particle which had electrical charge, which could hold on to other minerals and hold it tighter. So that has an effect for erosion. So which is why often you see the quartz sort of moving, and again the size. So we'll get Brad. I think we need to give Brad a round of applause for being in the straitjacket.
I was going to say, a lot of people would want to see that. I just said that many times, actually, that I should be committed.
Okay, so that's the sort of a little bit of the demo about the materials, with about the age of old materials. Then and we'll see as we go in this landscape that even if you have a look at this pit, and I'll finish up soon, I'll pass on to Brad because we need to keep moving, but you can see how coarse the material is here, and yet when we go down to the other sites, you'll just see how much clay is in the profile. So there's been a lot of movement and a lot of soil development, even in a relatively subtle landscape like this, given that it's sort of undulating, let alone what are in the hills and things like that. So we've got the parent material is really important, how old it is, the the age, how much weathering, the type of minerals, and affect the development, and the position of the landscape. The only other thing I'd just sort of ask is about climate, because climate's going to affect this, and Brad might sort of talk a little bit about this on there later on. But can people tell me where's the wettest part of the Strathbogies? So is there? There's. I always thought Mount Strathbogie, right in the southeast corner. Southeast corner is probably the wettest. As you go up there, and then as you go the other side, if you're coming up from Seymour, it's probably a bit drier. So there's probably two things happening there. One is, where's the weather coming from? So it's coming from the west, going this direction, and then the ground's getting higher as you go up there. So you're getting this gradation of greater rainfall as you go further northeast, and so that's having an effect on the soil. So there's all this interaction going on, and Brad will talk a little bit about the veg as well. But there's all this interaction going between the rainfall, how much rainfall is going on. The only other thing that affects that is about the topography. I have too many handouts. There was a report done mid-Goulburn, and I wanted to just sort of show you this. Is that this is sort of this, where are we? If I have it the right way up might help. So there's Talarooks around here, and then what this map shows is the degree of dissection. So not only have you got a range of rainfall going up, your area, like for example, we have a plateau here, as the gentleman sort of said, and so therefore a lot of the material that develops has sort of stayed up here for one reason or another, whereas where we've got more dissection, a lot of the material has been divided and washed out, and so you get sandier soils happening in the more dissected areas. And so you can, those of you that come from other parts of Strathbogies, you can sort of perhaps have a look and think, well, the degree of dissection, how fast the water's running off, affects the erosion and the long-term rate of soil accumulation. So has anybody, before I pass over to Brad, has anybody got any questions? since I've stunned everybody into silence after if you're just waiting for your crisps, I'll pass on to Brad the veg, and then we'll get to talk a bit more when we go to the soil pits, and hopefully we'll do a little bit more interaction there.
It's the vegetation that that we're sort of seeing around here is somewhat influenced by the soil, but also influenced by other features, as David mentioned before, things like topography, the relief of the landscape, the climate of microclimates. But I suppose generally describing the associations of vegetation around what we sort of see here. The trees that you would see in the distance over here, things like narrow-leaf peppermints, madagums, and maybe candlebarks, messmates, for instance, are all fairly indicative of this sort of higher rainfall country. We don't get them as you start to drop off the Strathbogie sort of granites and down into the say some of the more sedimentary soils around Seymour, and also, and then as we sort of climb up into the hills around here, aspect might have a bit of a difference as well. So that's where you might see things like on north and northwest facing slopes. You would see some of the familiar species might be things like stringy barks, red stringy barks, for instance. If people have got anything to add, by all means, do that. In areas where there are more fertile valleys, some of the sort of characteristic species you might see if you're looking at trees would be things like, say, yellow box on the slightly better country, and most farmers would know that their better country often has a lot of yellow box. You have to be careful, I suppose, about inferring soils and what they're telling you from the vegetation, because, as I said, they are influenced by other things as well, and especially drainage, where you've got water going, draining into and out of landscapes is one thing. Whoa. And I suppose other indicative, some of the key things that the vegetation might sort of tell you, and it's sort of a given in wet times because you're usually standing in wet soils, so it's easy to tell that it's wet. But things like, as we'll see down here, rushes and sedges might also indicate a bit more water in the soil. And for some, it's not just about, or for some species, it won't just be the water being a limiting factor, but some plants and vegetations respond to too much water, which is really about a lack of oxygen in the soil profile as well. So it can sort of work both ways. And our soils might also have an influence on vegetation through things like nutrient supply or toxicities, for instance. It might not be a big issue. I don't think saline discharge is an issue up here. But certainly in other areas, sort of some of those toxicities might also influence and express changes in vegetation. I suppose on some of the skeletal soils, so as we get a bit higher up, you'll see a lot more shrubbier and change in vegetation structure. You'll see things like rock isotomes and things like fringe myrtle, sort of a bit more scrubbier, where you've only got you might only have a few centimetres of soil below these rocks. And so, some of these plants have adaptations in surviving in those areas. It gets a bit harder in landscapes where you've got a management history because disturbance can also influence exactly what you're seeing, and so you have to just be a bit careful about what soils, if you're relying on vegetation to soils. Up around the high rainfall areas up here, the influence of probably soil isn't as much as when you start to get into the drier country. Where rainfall, for instance, becomes a bit more limiting, that's when soils might have a bit more of an influence on maybe what some of the vegetation would be telling you. So, and I suppose just other ways I'd sort of describe some of the landscapes up here too, and especially aspect might have a difference with the vegetation. So there still are places where you might see drooping she oaks. The odd she oak still up on the hills in some places. I saw some on the way up, came up the Strathbogies, but sort of indicating a slightly more drier sites as well. So I suppose that's really I was just going to add to the conversation was that, and there might be things as we go down to the pits. I do have some samples of plants with me that will I can show people at the pits as well, which some of the subtle differences that might indicate things that are going on in the soil. So I'm happy to show those when we get into it.